thank you everyone for not just not just being here on the panel and the whole thing what we did yesterday with the South Side tour, but another thing I was thinking through yesterday that is coming out of this 2 days that I want to thank you folks for the experience, what it is that you're providing for some of these young folks. Really, I want to thank all of you for, the way that you have treated them with respect, and acknowledgement. I don't know if some of you remember what that was like when you were younger and, going around older people. Anytime that you did have that opportunity to be around older people and they weren't, looking down on you, they would just, treat you like another person in the room, with acknowledgement. These are important experiences. So if nothing else comes out of these 2 days, I want to thank all of you for helping to provide that experience. And give yourself a round of applause for doing that. Really. Before I introduce some of the people on this panel that I'm really excited about sharing with you, I want to very quickly just, a couple of people that I eyeballed who were with us on the South Side tour. I want to give them a minute to just, or 30 seconds or so, to tell you what they saw yesterday on the South Side tour. Richard Gantz.
Hi everybody, I'm Rich Gans. I'm a venture partner with Orange Grove Bio. So he asked me to just make a couple of comments about the tour and what I saw down there. So I think many of you have heard kind of the Orange Grove story. We're working to try to bridge the gap and get new therapeutics out of academic medical centers and into the clinic. There are a million ideas that are still percolating within the halls of great academic institutions, which we're blessed to have many of here in Chicagoland. But there's still a big gap between kind of seeing those opportunities and actually making them happen. So what I saw during that tour, and we had a discussion about yesterday, is there's certainly some need for additional location of the people that are active in the ecosystem, like venture capitalists and biotech development people and wet labs. My friend that wants to do the wet labs here today.
Leslie. No, he's not here.
No, he had to fly to LA.
Okay, he's in LA. God bless him. Anyway, I think there's certainly a need in downtown Chicago for increased development. You're seeing it at Portal, you're seeing it at MHub, seeing lots of opportunities for new creation in the biotech world. Further south is harder to find, right? And so I think one of the things we're trying to do is to see if we can't convince the University of Chicago to work with us to end up with some space at the University of Chicago. So we'll be not too far from the South Shore Community Center, not too far from the quarry, and so those were my thoughts from yesterday. We're delighted to see it happen.
And hopefully, and we know that, it won't be the last time that we get to engage with you on this. Great, thank you. Okay, apparently I was technical, I was using the wrong one. Where did I? Say, drop the mic when I'm finished and watch it smoke. David Lane, can you give us 30 seconds or so?
Absolutely. I've been working, I do mostly real estate. I'm with 21 CIG Capital down in Miami. Do business pretty much in Europe, Asia, Latin America, but worked in a lot of low-income housing projects before. And I know from experience, not my own personal, but in the projects that I've worked in, what difference a little attention, a little money can create in these communities. And it goes a long way in rebuilding these communities. It's actually profitable. It's just, it's not pretty. For investors, it's not an attractive, sexy space. So it's overlooked quite a bit, but it's quite profitable and it changes lives. And what I saw yesterday was just this beautiful space where they have jazz. And I met the ladies that cook the bean pies in the front. I bought a couple and share with people, and it's just nice to get that feel of boots on the ground with the people, right? And see how lives can change with just a little bit of effort, a little bit of attention. So I had a great time, and I appreciate you bringing us there.
Thank you. Oh my God. Literally, we've been weeks at this. Mirjana Prokic. I think I did. Listen, we've had from all over the world, not just all over the country, all over the Chicago area. Literally, people have come in from all over the world to, share their perspectives with us. And so, Mirjana.
Yeah, I'm from all over the world. I'm from London. Yeah, coming from Europe, I have slightly different perspective on everything. So my first reaction when we went to Southside and drove through those abandoned streets was to get out and walk. And where are those people? So then it reminded me of my trip to Tampico, where I was literally almost imprisoned because I was in a cartel kind of area where conference was happening, and I wanted to walk around, and people actually stopped me. I had bodyguard and the driver, and they said you're not allowed to walk. And in Europe we walk everywhere, and we don't fear those gunshots around your head, even in bad neighborhoods. What I experienced actually in Tampico was despite all this that they said no, don't go anywhere, I did walk. And what I experienced was that people from those gangs were interested to hear where I'm coming from, what I do, etc. And I gave them some good tips, and I made some friends. So it's all about that fear that we all have, and that fear is very tragical for many different experiences and holds us back. And I think what Yvette is doing and other people that are trying to do as well in Southside is brilliant, because when you keep people engaged, active, and as part of a community and seen, then things do happen. Otherwise, nothing will move forward, and all these amazing projects will just go away. So I think I am I was thinking overnight how I can help personally, and I would like to propose to Yvette that I would be happy to give 1 hour of my mentoring to those groups who want to do any entrepreneurial journey in their lives. I have experience and also my corporate life before my entrepreneurial life. So I'm just happy to do it that way, and I hope that I can help many people to just go in a good direction. Thank you.
Hopefully some of you will be coming to the breakouts, because there's a lot more where that came from. Fortunately, we had a bus full, and as I say, we're very appreciative of that. Okay, now we're going to move on to our featured speakers here. I'm going to start with the guy in the middle, and as you can see, I have all of them to my left. You see what I just did there, Stephen?
Yep.
Stephen says, no matter what I do, I always take it to the left, right? It always winds up going to the left. First up, Bruce Montgomery, broadcaster, educator, entrepreneur, and who I think is probably the most fierce advocate that we have in Chicago, advocating for black business and the health of economic activity in the black community. He is the founder and CEO of the Entrepreneur Success Program, and has successfully mentored, trained, or instructed over 500 entrepreneurs here in Chicago. He is the host of a weekly radio program on WVON AM Radio 1690, one of the premier black radio stations here in the country, Bruce on Business, and you can catch him every Saturday afternoon from 3 to 4 on that channel. And as I said, just a fierce advocate for what it is that we need to do for Black Enterprise here in Chicago. Present to you now Bruce Montgomery.
Thank you, Lauren, and glad to be in this room again for the return of this august group coming to Chicago. And thank Mark for corralling everybody and getting us here. I would like to say to begin, and hopefully we could enter into a great conversation and be very much more interactive than kind of pitching anything. But I just want to start with a brief story. Maybe I'm the oldest person on this panel and one of the older people in this room. And some 50 years ago, I used to take the bus from my house, home in Chatham community, and take the bus down King Drive to 61st Street, and then over 61st Street into the University of Chicago, and then walk across the street on the campus. And that was 50 years ago. And the unfortunate thing is, over my career, mostly in technology, I spent some 35 plus years in various disciplines within IT software and all kinds of various iterations and traveling. I was always working for tech firms, but never working in Chicago. So even though I lived in Chicago all the time, I worked for companies in Boston and San Francisco and Texas, and was always on planes and cars, and person in this room who finally got me off those planes and got me reconnected to Chicago. But the point I want to make is, in many ways, and now I'm a Hyde Park resident, but as I've gone around the country I used to work there's a place in Cambridge in Boston called Kendall Square. And I worked for a software startup there many, many years ago. And when I returned to Kendall Square over the years, it's almost unrecognizable. You know, it's like, Cambridge is not a big place. And I look up and I'm like, where do you even find places to put even more buildings in Cambridge? It's ridiculous. But when I come back and I go to the same thing out in Palo Alto, Stanford, same thing down by, Rice University in Houston, and many, many campuses around the country, they're almost unrecognizable 5, 10, 15, 20, let alone 30, 40 years later. But here in Chicago, my University of Chicago, in many ways, looks hardly no different. And what's even more concerning is across the street, 61st Street or Cottage Grove, going a little bit south or a little bit north, in some ways there are fewer businesses that are along those strips and those corridors. And so when the gentleman stood up and talked about biotechnology, and of course the University of Chicago, a preeminent academic institution that has a, biology and life sciences and astronomy, and 2 federal labs are managed by the University of Chicago, Argonne and Fermi. And but to see right across the street from that powerhouse of the life of the mind, to see what has not happened in the surrounding communities is very disconcerting. And then let's flip over to the other side of town, the west side. I said I had something to say about the west side. Suppose I told you that there was close to 600 acres of a development opportunity in an urban setting. And within that 600 acres, there are over 40 institutions of advanced science and healthcare. I'm talking about something called the IMD, the Illinois Medical District. 600 acres. And bordering those 600 acres are the University of Illinois, Veterans Hospital, Cook County Hospital, Rush St. Luke Hospital. There's so many, there's no other place like it in the United States that is that concentrated of life sciences. And maybe some 30 years ago, I had the pleasure of working with a Dr. Walter Massey, who at that time was the Vice President of Research at the University of Chicago. We started something called the Chicago High Tech Association, and we actually created one of the first wet labs and life science incubators on the west side of Chicago in the Illinois Medical District. And at the time, we were trying to encourage some bustling startups called Amgen
and Genentech to try to move to Chicago and jumpstart this center facility. Here, again, some 30 plus years later, we're still talking about, but not recognizing that these communities of the south and the west side of Chicago, for some kind of way, investors, not necessarily entrepreneurs, but certainly capital, has avoided these two communities like the plague. And yet, if you go back another 50 years before I showed up, all of the companies that became whoever they became, whether it was Sears or Motorola or Zenith, or I could list 50 of them, actually got their start in and around this very community that I'm talking about. And so those firms scampered to the west, like into the western suburbs, into the northern suburbs, or to the northwest areas of Chicago, and left these communities disinvested, underinvested, and underappreciated. But some people couldn't move. Their institutions were too embedded in the ground to just pick them up. You just can't walk the University of Chicago 50 miles away. You can't walk IIT University 50, although they tried. You know, if it wasn't for the Galvin family, IIT might have moved somewhere else.
University of Chicago does that every 20, 30 years, right?
But let me fast forward to the point of this conversation today. After I got off a plane and quit flying around and living out of hotels and suitcases, being in the what I call corporate computer America, I returned, and the only reason I got into computer business in the first place is because I thought it was an industry, because as a young person, when I saw the industry kind of marching away from the community, I said, well, maybe what we need to do is get an industry on the way up and then reconnect that with my community. And so that would, you know, let's get in on the ground floor. So while I got in on the ground floor, the industry never matriculated to being on the ground floor of these urban communities. But right now, in the last couple of years, and because some of the people on this panel with me, we're starting to turn the corner, because we're recognizing through our conversations with ESG and with DEI that if we don't engage all of the people in innovating like our lives depended on it, we're missing the point of what putting capital to work in the free enterprise system is all about. Because it is the talent that creates the business. And capital flows to talent. And I can tell you right now that the hottest area in development in Chicago is a place called the Near West Side. Now, they don't call it the West Side anymore, they call it Fulton Market. And they try to pretend like it's not the West Side. But in this very small little area between Halsted Street and maybe Ashland or Damon, you know, more development has happened. There are probably 30 cranes over there right now. And that area is exploding largely because firms from the West Coast and the East Coast have gravitated to Chicago to take advantage of the talent that's here. And when they come from the West Coast and the East Coast and they look at some of the prices on real estate, everything, they say, what's wrong with this property? Now, Chicagoans look like it like it's the most expensive thing in the world. But what do you mean a $500,000 condo, $1 billion condo? New York people come and say, what's wrong with this building? What, are they giving something away around here? And so these companies are locating in the West Loop because they want to have access to the graduates coming out of the UICs, the DePauls, and even beyond that, you know, many career opportunities that people coming out of what we euphemistically call returning citizens, people can take a boot camp-like process and in a matter of 8 to 12 to 10 weeks, be a cloud architect or a cloud administrator or a DevOps person and that kind of thing. And they'll be whisked away into these jobs that are all ballooning in Chicago at breakneck speed. But we're still doing it in a way that is very insensitive to what I'm talking about in terms of anchoring growth businesses in these communities with an eye toward inclusion, not just as employees, but as stakeholders and stockholders, so that there can be capital appreciation along with the recognition of human capital development. So I'm happy to say that I believe that in this room are the change agents that will start to recognize the true assets that are in this city and the talent that is here. And I'll just point out one of the talents, and then I'll shut up and listen to the wisdom coming from the younger people on my right and my left, is during the height of the pandemic, there was one superstar that arose in this state of Illinois that I would argue that anybody who saw her work respected unequivocally. And that was Dr. Nzike, who was heading up the pandemic response for the state of Illinois. A trained medical professional, but her aplomb and her compassion and her capability to encourage the best of us in the worst times was just something to marvel at. Dr. Nzike was phenomenal. And she has since transitioned out of government to take a leadership role at Loretto Hospital on the west side. Or no, is it Mount Sinai, Mount Sinai. To take a leadership role right at the tip of that Illinois medical 600-acre district that I was talking about. So in terms of why we're here and the point of this conversation is that because of the people on my right and my left, this is a time like Chicago's never seen for capital, smart capital, patient capital, aggressive capital to connect with phenomenal business opportunities in one of the most entrepreneurial rich times that I've ever seen in my entire life. And I have the pleasure and fortune to be able to mentor, educate, support, and accelerate the trajectory of those entrepreneurs so that in proximity to that wonderful University of Chicago and that wonderful UIC and that wonderful IIT that's right in the community we call Bronzeville, that we cannot avoid those communities like we've avoided them, but build the wet labs and finance the ideas so that we can start solving the systemic challenges. Innovation is nothing but solving problems. And there's plenty of obvious problems we're solving, and I'm so happy that we're coming together to solve those problems in a unique way through entrepreneurship, ownership, investment, and wealth creation. Thank you very much.
I mean, all that we're talking about really, we haven't parsed it out for Chicago yet, but we know nationwide, you could say African Americans are contributing anywhere from 1.4 to 1.6 trillion every year into the American economy. And that's just consumer spending. No, that's not even our productive capacity. Hispanic American community, $1.2 to $1.3 trillion. So quite honestly, I was even thinking, in some ways, we might not even really need to be talking about what you're going to invest in our communities. What we really need to be talking about is how can we retain more of that $2.5 to $3 trillion a year that just come flowing in and out of our community without really doing much. That's what we're trying to build, sustainability, and that's the kind of thing that our next speaker is talking about. LaForest Baker, in addition to being an entrepreneur in his own right, founder and CEO of Moon Meals, he is the Vice President of Community Impact for World Business Chicago. This is a public-private partnership established by the city of Chicago that is raising and allocating $1.4 billion with a B in investment capital, primarily targeted on the south and west side of Chicago, right? Okay, so we're going to hear some of the details of that and how you can become involved in that. LaForest Baker.
All right, thank you. Thank you so much for having me here today. This is like as Bruce said, a really exciting time. I think, for the first time, people, number one, are starting to realize, quite honestly, it's unsustainable to develop, just the urban core of Chicago, so the downtown and the north side of the city, and forget about the south and west sides of the city, particularly when the majority of the landmass of Chicago is actually the south and west sides of the city. And so, it's really been an untapped opportunity, honestly. I'm so glad that you all got to go and tour the south side, whether it be at the Quarry or other sites that you all went to just see how beautiful it is and the amazing stuff that's going on there. At World Business Chicago, we are the economic development arm for the city of Chicago. So we bring everyone to Chicago, including the large corporate headquarter relocations you might hear about, from tech companies and Fulton Market to all of that. But then the community impact team, we focus that development on the south and west sides. One of the reasons why we're doing that, and it's a little bit of a different approach than has happened in the past or past political administrations. Our kind of ethos is concentrated economic development in certain corridors. We consider the kind of major corridor in the neighborhood to be the front door to the neighborhood. So if you go down, let's say in Woodlawn, which borders Hyde Park, go down 63rd Street, that's the corridor to the neighborhood. If you go into, the Daly's restaurant that's been down there, it's the oldest black-owned restaurant in the city of Chicago, and that is the front door to the neighborhood. You're gonna drive past that every day before you drive by, your house that you live in. And so, our one of the things that we're trying to do is really invest in those corridors. And so I know we have a couple of slides up. Can someone go to the next? Okay. So, we're doing 4 different things. Lauren mentioned that, the 1.4 billion with a B. And I always say that because, when people say there's no investment happening on the south and west side of Chicago, I'm like, well, where's all this money going? We're focused on, 10 different neighborhoods on the south and west sides of Chicago. Some of those neighborhoods being Inglewood, Humboldt Park. So these are kind of like black and brown neighborhoods that traditionally have been disinvested. And we're doing developments like, for instance, in Inglewood. Actually, I'll use one on the west side because I'm from the south side. People say I don't talk about the west side enough. And I do the south and the west side. So in North Lawndale, we're doing a $38 million investment in an innovation center there. And so, our goal in doing that, all of our investments are mixed use, so it builds residential as well as commercial space. In doing that, that then attracts follow-on investment. Banks, they come online and they'll say, hey, now that the city is behind this site, we want to finance projects here, which then means that, we get a small business owner. Like I think about today I was on the phone with a small business owner, this woman, I'm putting her on the spot, Southside Grinds. They started off just as an idea. They kind of built out a little kiosk in an area in Bronzeville called Boxville on the south side. And now they're about to build out their first commercial coffee shop in Woodlawn, in a $20 million investment that we made in the Freed Family Health Center that's going to be coming online in July. Now she has what she needs to be able to go out to a bank, to investors like yourselves in the room, and say, hey, I'm moving into a project that's a $20 million investment. I've got $250,000 in a grant from the city. Now I need to kind of fill my capital stack with private investors. It's pretty much a done deal. I mean, that's the surest investment you could have, right? And so we're trying to kind of build that ecosystem so that more businesses can be created on the south and west side of Chicago. Therefore, that'll bring more opportunity and jobs to the south and west side of Chicago, which, when people talk about, violence and all that type of stuff, I've said this many times, nothing stops a bullet like a job. Yeah, that deserves a hand.
I mean, it's a real cart before the horse thing. If there's any other time where you really want to put the cart before the horse, It's what he's talking about.
Yep. And so I talked about the $1.4 billion and what we're doing there. Another thing that we're doing, we're very intentionally building out some infrastructure for some of these businesses. So we have something coming up on June 16th called the Black and Latino Excellence Investment Summit. We've handpicked 15 highly scalable businesses that they've already done a great job at building a great product or a service, been around at least 3 years, have $250K in revenue, and these businesses are looking to grow and scale and build their next location or build out another version of their service. And so, we're working with them. We've lined up all of the big banks from, CIBC, Wintrust, JP Morgan Chase to actually lend to these businesses. And so, we're going to be really excited on June 16th to announce those funding pairings. Outside of that, of course, we have the 10 Invest Southwest sites. We're looking to, cut the ribbon at the groundbreaking for as many of those as possible this year. Can we go to the next? Okay. And then, we just also do general South and West Side business development. So when you see businesses and activity happening on the South and West Side, that's not just happening. Like, there's someone that needs to seed that. So, we're talking to the Targets, the Starbucks, the Albertsons, Jewel Osco, all of those chains. We talk to all of those folks, and people in the community come to us and say, hey, we want a grocery store, we want a coffee shop, we want this. We help to bring that. For instance, you all might have heard about the closing of the Whole Foods in Inglewood on the south side that got a lot of press over the weekend. We're working to help bring a new operator there that is actually relevant to people in the community. And so,
Whole Foods, whole paycheck. We were calling it in the neighborhood. I don't know. I don't think it ever had a chance.
Yeah.
In Inglewood. Sorry.
Yes. Oh yeah, I know. Yeah, I'm wrapping it up. Yeah. And so, can we go to the next? Yeah. So I'll just end with this because I think this is very visionary. So really, the South and West Sides, it's a true opportunity for you to invest in the businesses there. Again, the businesses create the jobs there. And I'll just leave you with this. This is a project that we're funding. This is going to be the first kind of Class A office space outside of what the University of Chicago has built on the south side of Chicago. It's the Washington Park Bank building, which really back in the 1930s was like a highlight in the community. We're reviving this building. It's going to be completely redone. A food hall is going to go at the bottom, which is going to be the on-ramp for people to start new businesses in the food space on the south and west side. And then there's going to be office space above. So, definitely available for questions. But yeah, just really excited to be here and excited that you all are supporting this.
Come to the breakout so that we can have discussions on this. In the interest of time, I'm just going to ask you to quickly introduce yourself and give them a couple of minutes about what you're here for.
Good afternoon. My name is Adib Borden. I am the CEO and founder of Black Youth Leadership 21, a youth education consulting company where we believe in students influencing, not helping or changing, but influencing cultural connection with teachers and administrators. And so I know one of the biggest questions is, how do we invest on the south side of Chicago? And I think that capital is nice, but we have to learn how to invest time, because that's really where wealth is, especially investing time in our classroom into education. And so I just want to kind of tell you what is my approach on how we are addressing these cultural gaps that we like to say in education right now. And so I started a program called the Individual Achievement Plan, which is a cultural achievement plan that closes cultural gaps in schools. And so if anyone here is familiar with IEP, it's the individual achievement plan where you evaluate what the child is, see where the needs and gaps is, benchmarks, and then you come up with situations or programs to help close those gaps, but also to ensure future success. And so that's exactly what this individual achievement plan is to see where the gaps are culturally, And so relationship with teachers and administrators, workshops that can, and curriculums that can close those workshops, but also ensuring that we are producing long-term success for these organizations. How are we executing this? Because in my company, we talk a lot about the planning, but I tell my company, I said, we need to plan for the execution. So we have something called Junior Field Services Directors, which are a group of students who are extremely passionate and knowledgeable about topics that they feel that schools need to be more aware of. And so, for example, the LGBTQ rights for students. We have a student on our field services department who is going to go out to these schools and say, hey, from a student perspective, this is what I believe. And so just to kind of give you a gist of what our junior field services director's responsibilities is, they're executing all workshops and professional developments that schools request. And so it is very important as a youth who is sitting at the table surrounded around so many incredible people is that we learn how to invest time and commitment in our youth and ensuring that we are true innovating education at this moment.
Hey, give it up for, I don't know if y'all know this. This young brother's only, 15 years old, right? 15-year-old, man, and he's really doing it. My name is Kareem Cole-Wells. I'm actually an entrepreneur. I'm from the west side of Chicago. People call me the king of the mitzvahs. I do bar and bar mitzvahs here in Chicago, all over. Book out 3 years in advance. I'm actually I'm from the area you were talking about. So Henry Horner Project Homes over on Ashland, you know, that whole area, Madison, that whole area, that's where I'm from originally. I was actually a drug dealer. That's what I did. I was a high school dropout. I changed my life around. I had a couple mentors in my life, and so I pride myself on mentoring the kids. You know, my true talent is just connecting people and bringing people together. So I use my platform now that I've had a little bit of success in my life with real estate and just meeting just great people throughout my life that help me grow. So my whole thing is to bring people together to build up the West Side, South Siders, to build up the West Side and the South Side. And I'm doing it by bringing people from the North Shore of Chicago, Lincoln Park, bringing a lot of people together to bring in resources any way I can through my entertainment company, you know, that does all the bar and bar mitzvahs. I do the mitzvah project with the kids, you know, the bar mitzvah kid. I do it's called Parties with Purpose. I bring kids from those areas to the west side to those areas, just building bridges between communities to make things better. And it's really important to me to do that, and I'm doing it with what I love. And my passion is people, music. I always tell people, help me, help you to help us.
Thank you. Next.
Come join our 361 firm community of investors and thought leaders. We have a lot of events created by the community as we collaborate on investments and philanthropic interests. Join us.